In 3, 2, 1. This Hangout is on air and live. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, depending on where you are in the world. This is Chattering with Nicholas Vince, and we are chattering about The Crazies, the George Romero film. But before we get into that, I just wanted to share some information about upcoming shows, etc. So the first thing is that Jill Six will be joining me next week. The following week, there was a brief announcement earlier this week. I haven't had a chance to set it up yet, but Paul Hyatt, the director of Howl and the man responsible for the makeup on The Descent and Woman in Black, and also the director of The Seasoning House, will be joining us, but we'll be concentrating particularly on his latest movie, which will be going into UK cinemas on October the 16th for a limited run. Howl, which is a new werewolf movie, which I saw at Fright Fest and really thoroughly enjoyed. So that's coming up. That's on the 11th of October, and then on the 12th of October at the Etc. Theatre, myself and Barbie Wilde, my fellow Cenobite, will be at the Etc. Theatre in Camden in London for the London Horror Festival. And we're going to be judging some new writing, 3 new short horror plays. I'm really looking forward to that. I have no idea what they're about, who they're by, or anything about them. We're just going to go in, then we're going to, I presume we're going to watch, and then we're going to huddle for a bit, and then we're going to make our decisions, probably very quickly, I assume. Anyway, so if you're around, do please come join us. We'll be there before and after the show chatting to people. Great to meet you and say hello. So that is that. Now, this is going to be really, really obvious, but I just wanted to warn people. This show is going to contain spoilers for both the 1973 and the 2010 movie, The Crazies. So just so you're aware, because I loathe spoilers personally, and I'm just going to minimize that and so on. And I'm going to introduce a couple of gentlemen. Charles Flowers is hooking up, he says. But we're going to start with Jonathan. Jonathan, would you like to introduce yourself?
Hi, my name's Jonathan Hughes, a big horror fan. I have seen both Crazies. First one, the original one I saw on FearNet during during a discussion whilst watching the movie at the same time, and I have seen the remake also. Just a fellow horror fan, like all y'all. Right, best go on.
Cool. All right then.
Very soon.
Cool. All right, and Jonathan, we'll come back to you in just a few moments, and then Philip.
Yeah, hello. I'm Filip and I'm a cinephile, and as well, I'm first and foremost a horror fan as well, and I've seen both Crazies. Yeah.
Cool. All right, good. Oh, it's good to know both of you had the chance to actually watch both of the films. Yeah. Not everybody may have had a chance to watch both films, but if you have, it'll be interesting to see what everyone's thoughts of it are. Sorry, I'm just arranging some windows. Oh, I should say, by the way, and remind people that I am introducing something that you will now be able to share your comments using Twitter. So if you put in the hashtag ChatteringNick, that's hashtag ChatteringNick, I'll be able to monitor those, and so you can tweet your comments as well as putting them on YouTube and on Google Plus as well. So I think what I'd like to do is just start with your thoughts on the original movie. Jonathan, you said you watched it on FearNet. So how long ago did you watch the original movie?
This was a while back. I saw it during a director's commentary. I believe, not director's commentary, fan commentary. FearNet had a series of horror movies where sometimes the directors or fans of the movies, those in the media, the likes of the Killer POV guys, or Ryan Turek was a part of this one in particular, and him and another chap were there discussing the movie whilst watching it at the same time, and it used to be when FearNet was around.
Oh, okay.
So yeah, and I saw it then, and it was a great George Romero movie. It was pretty fucked up and crazy, as the title would assume. And but it's a classic. It's a classic, you know. It's a classic George Romero, one of his most underrated movies. in my opinion.
Oh, interesting. So you're a huge fan of. Okay, well, I'll come back to you in just a couple of moments, and I'll get Philip's view on this as well. I mean, Philip, when did you see the original movie?
Well, it was probably, I think it was last year. I'm a big George Romero fan. He's one of my favorite directors. And I bought the Blu-ray, actually, released by Blue Underground. And well, it didn't look that great on Blu-ray. It's a it's a 70s film. But I was very surprised by it. I mean, I heard about the Crazies before, and going into it, I thought it was going to be this sort of, oh, is this going to be the kind of 28 Days Later type of film with people running from infected people? I thought this was going to be, I mean, it's Romero, he created the zombies, so maybe he also created the whole infection type. But it's not that kind of film at all. It's more of a like satire on government ineptitude, really, more than anything. It's about the government. I mean, the title is, we can get to it later, but the title is kind of, I think you can interpret the title as, who are the crazies really? Is it the infected people, or maybe it's the military, you know? So I think it's not at all like the remake, which is they took a very different approach with the remake. But yeah, I thought the original was terrific. I mean, it suffers from a limited budget, definitely, and Romero is still learning how to direct. But it's I liked it a lot. I liked it a lot.
It's interesting. I watched it again. I watched it for the first time earlier this week in preparation of the show, and before I'd watched it, I came across a comment online that somebody said it was quite bloated. And I kind of know what they mean. There are just too many characters. It takes a long time to make its plot, but I think, and you see the commander, or whoever he is, come into the town to sort it out, and you see the drawers with his underwear and his socks, which he's putting into his case, and you're thinking, you're probably just trying to tell us that he's an ordinary guy. But the whole thing is done with such frenzy and frenetic pace. The other thing I found really interesting as well is because the color, the blood is really, really red. That's something I really noticed. It's about, it's so unnatural looking, but very much of that stuff, of that era. And we are talking about the 1970s here, and that I found very interesting as well. But I think your point is very valid, Philip, that who are the crazies? The people who go out and actually make this stuff in the first instance, or the people who are infected by it?
Yeah, and Romero, this is the guy he lived through. I mean, he's been through Vietnam. I mean, he was there when it was on TV, and I mean, you see it in all of his films, in his zombie films as well, that he has this taste for the government. He's definitely kind of a hippie. I mean, he is something of a hippie. I think he said it himself. And it's obvious, I mean, he's drawing parallels to the Vietnam War here, with the government coming in here, and they're trying to control this crazy situation, and they're just killing. I mean, and I think in the film, you're not entirely sure, are they even killing crazy people at times? Or are they just people who are panicking? I mean, they're probably not even infected. So that's... And I think at some point, isn't there a soldier who himself goes completely crazy, and so that's what the whole movie is about. It's just the government just fucking up completely. I mean, and interesting also is that the soldiers and the government themselves is kind of arguing amongst. I mean, you have the soldiers don't even know exactly what's going on. There's one officer there who's surprised to learn that it was not a vaccine at all. It was a bioweapon. So he didn't even know that. So amongst the government people, they're arguing and can't even. It's a crazy film about a crazy situation.
Yeah, it is. And just before I come to Jonathan and get some more of your views about what you liked, or because you're saying it, Jonathan, I think right, you're saying it's a classic George Romero, and I'd like you to expand on that a little further. Kim Lehman is looking forward to it. Jamie Green can't join but is watching. Kelly Rawn says hello. Hi, Kelly. Always, thanks very much indeed for coming on and joining us. Charles, I have sent out an invitation to you, but you haven't appeared to have joined us yet. Jonathan, you said that you think it's a underrated Romero. Is that right?
Well, yeah, there was a discussion many months, long time ago about called the Bloodcast. It was a podcast with Ryan Turek and Clark Wolf, and they went through a George Romero retrospective of all his movies. And one of them, of course, when mentioned the Crazies, it just mentioned that it's just one of those films that it's one of those time films, isn't it? Like people still go back to it today and watch it. Of all the great Romero movies, obviously you've got his zombie ones, and then you've got the Crazies. But in addition to Philip's comments saying about who are the Crazies, I kind of look at the Crazies as the victims, because really the government are the Crazies because of how government reacts to this situation. I mean, which I will expand on a little bit more when we get to the 2010 version. But yeah. It's just how the way the government deals with the problem. It's not the problem that is a part of the Crazies. It's how the problem is dealt with.
Right. I think so. If we kind of drill down into the first one, as I say, we'll come on to the 2010 version a little bit later on. But thinking about the first one, what do you think are the strengths about the movie, and what do you think are the weaknesses about the movie? Jonathan, come back to you first. What do you think are the strengths of the movie?
Well, I'm thinking about the weaknesses, about how it was bloated but it wasn't. You didn't get enough time to get into all the characters a lot. About the weaknesses, because there was too many characters, of course. And it did go a bit all over the place. The Crazies, the Romero version from the 70s version. The strengths is, but again, strengths is it's old school. It's a very old school horror movie, and it's not about zombies. What's the scariest thing is you don't know who is crazy at the end of the day. Any one of them could just flip out at any minute, which is what I kind of like about this movie, because a zombie. You know what a zombie is. You can see all the blood and all the dismemberment. You can tell us what a zombie is. A crazy, you don't know. We could all be walking down the street, and then Philip could just turn on me like, "What the fuck?" So that was one thing I liked about the movie in general, about the Crazies, about that situation, because it's almost borderline Invasion of the Body Snatchers. I say borderline.
Interesting. Yeah, I think another couple. That's right. I'm just typing a message to Craig whilst I'm talking to you. Okay, and I just Don Pettit sends his apologies. Incidentally, whoops, Jonathan's disappeared. Well, you dropped your phone by the looks of it. Okay, and just a quick shout out. Giles is having a headset fail. Steve from Great British Horror says hello and sorry for being late. Kim Lehman, the remake was done quite well, but the original's still best. It had such an unsettling creep factor, and you feel that this could really happen. That's interesting. That's interesting. Philip, what do you think of the strengths and weaknesses of the original movie?
Yeah, I agree with Jonathan that yes, you feel that Romero is sort of. I mean, I read one review that described it as like a thinking man's exploitation film, and that's what it is. Like I feel like Romero definitely is like, okay, I don't have a big budget. I have this premise, and I have these actors in these rooms. I got to do something, and he gives them, of course, all this conflict, this dialogue between the soldiers and all that, which is all I think fun and interesting and sort of terrifying to watch as they can't control the situation. The commentary here on the government, the politics here, those are the strengths of the film, and I would say the unpredictableness of the actual film. Like you never know for sure like what the Crazies are going to do. They're not. I mean, some of them exhibit different behaviors in the film. There's, of course, that great scene with the old woman sitting and doing knitting, and the soldier comes in and goes, "Come on, we gotta go." And she just walks up and stabs him and goes back. That's a great creepy moment in the film. And then there's the other moment where what is she? They're fighting on the field, and it's like this one woman who, after that, affected woman who comes along and like is cleaning up the field from the bodies or something. And I thought that was a very
Oh yes, with the broom.
yes,
Sweeping. Yes, she's just sweeping.
which is just, I mean, it's sort of, it's on that line of comedy and but creep, but also eeriness. It's just, yeah, it's just what makes this film effective. There's something just creepy, and also the soldiers themselves with these sort of, I mean, they're faceless for the most part. They have these bacteria-proof white outfits with these gas masks, and
I think it's interesting. It's in both movies as well. Is that basically, except for one moment in the second one, you really don't get to see who is behind the masks. They are these faceless people. And in the first movie, particularly, you're absolutely right. I think we alluded earlier on to the priest who burns himself to death is so obviously a reference to the monk who did so in the Vietnam War, and they became the big symbol, although that's about against the war, although that's not what he was actually protesting about. But just that image of the self-immolation.
The weaknesses, I was about to get again, it's the budget, it's the weakness, the blood.
Yeah, and absolutely, but also I think it's interesting because with that, what is obviously a small budget, and I think it's Eden City where it was filmed, and it's set in a real life city, and it's the people of that real life city are obviously playing all the crazies, and you know, he uses the high school. These are not trained extras. You get people looking at the camera as they're going down the corridor and so on. You obviously just said, you know, we need an awful lot of people come and be in a movie.
Yes, and some of the screen direction here is a little off at times. There's like one part in the film where the scientist is arguing with the major, and he's looking to the right, but the camera setup is so that the major's looking to the to his right, and it's like it gets very confusing, and that's Romero because he wasn't able to do, I think, a master shot. He just had. Yeah,
absolutely. It is a low budget, isn't it?
And there are little funny things I noticed. Like, for example, the one general is obviously wearing a too big outfit. Did you notice this? His outfit is too big for him. He couldn't find a small. And this one actor is wearing a wig for some reason. What is that about? I don't know. But there are those little weird things that kind of make you go, what? But otherwise,
yeah, absolutely. The interest, What I was going to say, guys, if you do have any thoughts or comments and you want to put them into the comments on, as I say, on Twitter or on Google Hangouts or on YouTube, Craig is monitoring and he will pass them over to me so I can read them out for you. And what I wanted to, there's a couple of points before I come back to Jonathan. And get your thoughts on the new movie. I think we covered the notes that I made was, I think the very interesting thing about watching is that acting styles have changed over the years as well. I remember having a conversation with Clive Barker about this at one stage, who pointed out that if you look at Quincy M.E., everything is done at this very high frenetic rate. And it's all terrible, you know. It's all big, and this was very much the style of TV making in the time, and I think the original movie very much had a feel of a made-for-TV movie. It wasn't; it was made as a low-budget horror movie, but there was definitely a feeling that it was, I think that's where it ended up. Basically, it didn't get much of a release, and it wasn't that popular. It wasn't a critical success at all when it first came out. Far too many characters to care about, as we've already mentioned about, and it's also very difficult to distinguish the male leads in the original. They look very, very similar. They got the same haircut as well, and I was thinking, which one are you again?
One guy is unibrow.
Very difficult. Poor camera work, just very simple poor camera work. A lot of it, which you've alluded to. I do love the fact that it starts with a fire, simply because they were doing a fire practice. The local fire department were doing wanted to practice, and they had an empty building, so they burned it down. And George's, the production company said, "Great, we'll come along and film it, and we'll weave it into the story." In that case, other things that date it, of course, the interesting thing is the computers. The fact that computers would take days to run something before it can come up with a vaccine and so on. But also, the other thing I found very interesting watching it as well, it almost had the feel and the style of it, the way it was put together, and that great number of characters and different stories weaving in, was very much in the style of the disaster movies. Things like Airport, Towering Inferno, Poseidon Adventure at the time. And it really made you realize that how important the reason that those movies work is because they have big budgets, they therefore got big stars, and therefore you immediately recognize who these smaller characters are, and you can get away with these really big, complex stories when you've got those big budgets. But cool, Jonathan, we haven't heard from you for a little bit as well. So, Jonathan, what are your views on the remake? What did you think of the remake?
Well, there's a massive difference comparison between the budget of the original and the budget of the remake. It's just fucking massive. I want to Google how much the budget was, because the explosions, everything, and the effects, and I just like how it opens up already. Baseball pitch, guy shot, okay. And you always get the satellite imagery from there, so it's a modern. They are still trying to follow Romero's Romero's standpoint on government and everything throughout the movie. So I got caught that, and then you just got the likes of the way the government guys were just were burning everyone when they get out of the city and they get to the I want to say drive-through. They find they find the big fan that the main character is meant to be in, and it's all burnt up. They're all fucking torched and everything. So yeah, they went to fucking extremes. Yeah, I've enjoyed the newer one. I mean, I've got a great deal of respect for Romero and his work. Obviously, like I said, underrated. But yeah, oh my god, I did the new one, and I like the way it was promoted as well. All the creepy little songs as well, especially even in the trailer. They got oh good God, I've got the song on my phone. Mad World. They got the Mad World tune playing in the trailer, which I thought was very well promoted too. But all in all, great actionist horror, and again, who are crazies as well. And yeah, it was a great action horror in my opinion. So I watched it yesterday on Netflix, and yeah, it was good. Yeah, enjoyed it.
Yeah, it is available on Netflix. Yeah, in the UK we're talking about it. I don't know about America, but in the UK,
the first time I saw it, it's cinema.
Yeah, Philip, what do you think about the second movie?
Well, I like to compare it to the remake of Dawn of the Dead. They basically went with the action horror route with this one. In that, and there's not I guess there's some stand on against the government in this one, but I felt that in this film I didn't quite get the feel that they were trying to make the government out to be necessarily the biggest problem here in this film, for me anyway. I felt that they were definitely, I mean, you don't want to make a film that's going to upset that's going to make the government look bad today. This certainly is no I mean political agenda here from anyone involved. I mean, this is from the director of Sahara. I mean, it's not, it's trying to be just a conventional action horror film. And yeah, I think it definitely succeeded. It's very stylish. It's very well polished. It's a big budget film, and it's got actors that are good in it. But I must say, I was slightly a bit, I would say, I mean, it's more 28 Days Later, definitely, with this one. They make the infected more, in this one, there's no, I didn't feel like there was a kind of, because in the original, again, you, like we said before, you couldn't quite tell, is that person infected or isn't he? In this one, you can tell. They got veins on their faces, they got red eyes. They're very made up. And I don't know, I didn't like that. I liked that the original was more subtle. And this one was just a bit goofier in some ways.
It's very interesting. And I'm going to feed in some comments that we've been receiving whilst we've been talking as well. I hadn't spotted. I think you're absolutely right, Philip. That you don't know in the original movies, are the people just angry, etc. Just as you were saying, it's very clear what's going on. As you were saying, Jonathan, I love that whole opening sequence on the baseball thing, because these movies are about paranoia, and it's interesting to compare the different paranoias. So in the original, you've got the paranoia of the government, the soldiers that rifle the dead bodies and actually take all the scenes where they're going through the wallets, stealing the money, looking at the watches, all the jewelry, all the valuables, and so on, all these faceless beings. And there's that kind of paranoia about the government. Roll it forward to 2010, and it's about mass shootings. Walking onto the baseball pitch. And what I find very interesting about the remake as well is that, which I thoroughly enjoyed. I really, really enjoyed the remake. I just think it's a more slick movie. Of the two, the one I would want to sit down and watch again is the remake. It's the fact that you don't know whether or not it's the government, or perhaps it is a computer that's sending these people out, because all you see is the satellite and you see the text going on the screen. And it suddenly occurred to me, you never hear or see the government or representatives of the government. As such, you never see the colonel who's really in charge. You get this brief thing with the soldier who's saying, I didn't sign up to shoot unarmed civilians. Not quite sure why we're here. I just suddenly thought, actually, perhaps it's a computer that's deciding, okay, to contain this, we need to send these guys in here. It again is that kind of paranoia about the way the world is going and that we're all being spied on from space, etc. I just want to share a couple of comments before I come back to you guys again. Guy Pearson, technically the original Crazies has some of the worst camera direction I've ever seen. There are some scenes where the eye lines are completely off and everyone is looking in completely the wrong direction. Also, the 3M blood that looks like melted crayons is a bit off-putting. That kind of works in the more cartoony Dawn of the Dead. I didn't really care for the remake, but it was okay for what it was. It certainly could have been a lot worse. This is from Jamie Green, was saying Romero tends to make films that are relevant to the time in which they are made. And Charles Flowers says, I'm talking to an actor friend from The Crazies, the new version, right now. I was hoping to get him in the call, but he does not have a mic and camera. Oh, well, sorry. But if there's anything, Charles, if there's anything your friend would like to contribute or any insight on the making of the remake, just type it in. Happily pass it over to people. So yeah, it's interesting. It is interesting. I think the cast. You've got Timothy Oliphant in the second one. He's always good, whatever it is he's doing. And of course, George Romero was exec producer on the remake. Producer. Yeah, which I thought was really interesting as well. Kim Lehman, the common theme in George Romero's films is he's speaking about social commentary, how we interact with one another, be it through trials or disasters. Nicholas, do you think Romero's films started with with the horror films, the meaning behind the film, not just the blood and the gore? I think the films have a great message. I think that's the other point I wanted to make, is I think the second movie, the remake, could not have existed without the first one, because a whole load of the tropes that are set up that it exploits in the second one were set up by George Romero in the earlier movie and lots of other movies and so on. That whole thing of, in the second movie, where Timothy Oliphant tries to phone out of the town and it's dead, they can't get out from the computers, and he just says, we're fucked. He knows, and we all know now, this is the government. The government have quarantined. It doesn't need to be stated, apart from that nice little satellite thing. But everyone knows exactly where you are, and I think George created those things in the first instance. That these are how they go. Jonathan, did you have any further thoughts on either of the two movies?
I liked the way it was promoted. I just like all the. It's similar again. Philip was saying how it was similar to the Dawn of the Dead remake in terms of the music. You had all these little creepy songs, inappropriate songs that played not only with the promotion of the film but during the film as well. And like I said, just like the action, just like And you know what? At one point, there's a bit with some guys driving around shooting people as well. And those are regular people. Those were not crazies because they were talking and they were. I swear they were not crazies. They were actual proper people just going around shooting people as well. So yeah, so it wasn't just crazies. They were actual people, not just the government. There is
That's
one
very
point.
interesting. Yeah, I know the sequence you mean. Is that basically these are the hunters, which Timothy Oliphant says when they find the big plane that's crashed in the swampland, saying it's a bit, shooting season doesn't start for a couple of months, boys. Why you're out here with the guns? And the next time you see that group of men, they are literally just driving around the town shooting people.
Mm.
And then the sequence that you referred to later on, where they're in the trucks, and there's the classic image, and I put it up on the Facebook, the fingers coming through the slats of those big trucks when they put it's Auschwitz. It's a
Oh
very
yes,
clear reference to
the death camps of World War II. Yeah.
the Nazi death camps and so on. But you're absolutely right. It's like, Philip, what you have any further thoughts?
Yeah, it's frustrating. I mean, the original I think is a more interesting film and has a more interesting approach to the dilemma. The remake takes a more, again, conventional horror movie approach of ooh, the infected, ooh, they're weird looking, got veins on their faces and all that. And I don't. There's not. I mean, the original film was promoted with the government officials in their suits, as the terror really. Here, and it's more. And I like that approach better. I just find this one to be. I feel like they went with the more safer approach in this one. Just when we don't want to make a political film that's gonna piss off the American government. We're just gonna make another zombie film. That's what I got out of the remake, and I just thought that was a very
interesting. Is it basically they made in inverted commas a safe. It's very straightforward. There is definitely some sort of political. You get the menace of the government and so on. They're not making. I mean, the fact that in the original movie, the guy suggests dropping a nuclear bomb whilst he's eating his sandwich, I thought was great. It was like you've just got these suits in a room with a general on the line. In other words, it's obviously the politicians discussing what we never get to see who the president is. You never see the back of his head when he's authorizing dropping a nuke, and then they go for the dropping of the nuke in the second movie. Yeah, I know what you mean. That's what I say. In terms of a watch, it is the classic remake. It is the classic statement. Attributed probably erroneously to Sam Warner. If you have a message, use Western Union. The original just feels very heavy-handed in its political message. It's just like, this is the government. This is what now watching it now, it probably didn't at the time. Sorry, Jonathan.
Have you both seen Alien vs Predator 2: Requiem?
Yes, fortunately I have.
Have you seen it, Nicholas? Alien.
Which one's this? Requiem.
Alien vs Predator Requiem. The
No,
second
I haven't.
Alien. Okay. Oh boy. I'm not going to spoil it, but there is a government thing in that too. I was going to make a big point towards the government, but they do take a stab at the government and what they would do in a situation involving the alien and predators. But I'm not going to spoil it. I'd rather you watch it.
Thank you very much. I will do. And Craig has just pointed out Outbreak with Dustin Hoffman, Rene Russo, Morgan Freeman, has similar themes. Of you've got a virus, you've got something like. I've not actually watched Outbreak. I think I've seen snips.
I think I've seen that film.
Me neither.
Yeah, I know. I'm aware of it because it's got Dustin Hoffman in it. I thought, oh yeah, that looks very interesting. Cool. All right then.
On the back of this chat, I think it'd be interesting to do a Dawn of the Dead original versus remake. I think that would be a very interesting discussion.
Okay, let me make a note. Let me make a note about that. Dawn of the Dead.
Because that would be a very interesting discussion. There'll be a lot of things because it's Zack Snyder and George Romero's.
Okay.
Um,
I will look at
yeah.
scheduling. I shall have a look at scheduling that one in at some point.
But don't bother comparing the Day of the Dead films, the remake.
Not the Day of the Dead. No.
No,
Dawn of the
no.
Dead.
It's
interesting. We were talking about Dawn of the Dead. The Dawn of the Dead the other day as well in relationship to this. One of the interesting things about Dawn of the Dead is it happens during the daytime. Night of the Living Dead is very much obviously at night. Cool. Cool. Well, unless you guys have actually got anything more, Charles Flowers. Oh, bless him. He's trying to.
getting old.
Sorry, Craig was just saying zombies. How fond he is of zombies. He really does like zombies. He won't watch horror movies, but he is very fond of zombies. Cool. All right then. I think we've kind of exhausted. I don't think we've got anything else that we particularly want to share about this. Paul Yan is actually maybe trying to. Hold on, just as we're winding down, let me see if I can get Paul Yan in. I know Paul would like to come and join us. So this may go on for just a little bit. We've got.
Nicholas, how was your Rats shoot over the weekend?
Oh yes, sorry. Thank you very much indeed for that because. Team Rats. I am wearing the shirt. I had meant to mention this at the top of the show, and I forgot to make a note to remind myself. Sorry. Basically, for those of you who don't know, I have just walked off 2 all-night shoots for Rats, which we filmed at an unnamed castle. Basically, we started 6 o'clock in the evening. I think 7 o'clock in the evening on Friday night, went through to around about 7 or 8 o'clock on Saturday morning, then went to the hotel, and all of us together. And Paul, hi Paul, has just joined us. Hi Paul. I'll come back to you in just a couple of seconds, Paul. I'll just kind of finish telling the story. That we all went to the hotel where we were staying because obviously we need to get some sort of sleep. And at 9 o'clock in the morning, we're all saying to each other, "Night, night, see you in the morning, night, night." And then we did a second day's filming overnight last night, which we finished around about 6 o'clock in the morning. 7 o'clock, we got the last shot, I think, about 6:45 this morning. Finally did the wrap on that. I think it's going to be a really, really interesting film. It's an amazing set, because it is a castle. It's a genuine castle, and we were allowed access to all the rooms that the public normally goes into, and some of the places they're not. It's a great crew, great cast. Lawrence Harvey will be joining me on this show sometime in the next couple of months once we both know which side of the world we're going to be in over in October, November. Lawrence is going to come and join us. We had a tremendous time, but it's just bizarre because we were literally filming all night long. And I got to be in dungeons and literally down 30 or 40 feet down in the bowels of the earth, playing with an amazing puppetry and prosthetic effects for the monster as well, and I just think it's going to look gorgeous, and it's a fun. As is the way with these things with independent filmmaking, things didn't quite go as well to plan, but I reckon we've really Mark Logan, who was directing it and writing and directing it, and managed to stay calm amongst all these things as well. Was having to rewrite on the fly. It was an amazing time. I don't know when it's going to be out. It'll be out sometime next year, I suspect. And now it'll be going into the festivals, the film festivals. But thanks again to everybody who supported, who did the Indiegogo campaign, because they couldn't possibly have afforded to do it without that. But it was good fun, good time. Anyway, enough of me talking about Rats. And Charles Flowers saying he'll catch the next one. So sorry he's not being able to join us. Paul, thank you very much indeed for joining us. How are you doing, Paul?
I'm okay. Thank you for letting me in. I've been having a lot of technical issues on my computer. So right now I'm on my cell phone. So if I seem grainy or if I sound a bit off, it's because of that.
Okay. No problem.
Um,
So what are
right.
your thoughts on the original of The Crazies?
Well, I tried to actually re-watch the original Crazies because I did see the newer one. So I was trying to re-watch the older Crazies, but again, I was having technical issues, so I wasn't able to see the movie all that quite well on my Netflix. Having some internet router problems. But from what I can tell from what I've seen and of the newer one, I think it's what it is that the theme of apocalyptic movies or dystopian movies, it kind of changes or varies with the times, which each viewership watching it. A long time ago, during the 80s, the big fear of a post-apocalypse, the cause was nuclear fallout, nuclear weapons. After I think then into the 90s, it became biological with the movie you mentioned before with Dustin Hoffman, Outbreak, where now people started getting scared of instead of now being a nuclear fallout, it's a disease or something like that. And the two things and zombie virus and some kind of biological warfare. Nowadays it's electronics. Some people are scared. What was that movie? What is it? The electronic sound. People heard it now with the crazies. They had it here. Some kind of electronic sound tried to make people go nuts. I'm trying to remember what the name of the movie is. I cannot remember for the life of me. But I mean, like Pontypool could be one of them. I guess
Disturbing behavior, I think you're referring to.
Say that again, Jonathan.
Right.
I think it was Disturbing Behavior is the movie he's referring to.
Hmm. I can't remember the title off the top of my head, but I'm pretty sure that he's probably correct. That yeah, now they people and stuff like that. Dystopian apocalyptic. It's always varies the cause of it. I think goes with the viewership. So I think back then when people were first watching the original Crazies, they weren't quite getting what was the cause of it and what would cause these people to end the entire thing because they were so used to probably seeing a nuclear apocalypse that the idea of just people snapping and going and doing that wasn't really syncing with them. But if they were to like join us now in this time where people are possible causes and that the mentality of it that they'll probably go, oh yes, yeah, something, now I do have to be scared of that. Now my fear is not no more nuclear weapons or a biological or a chemical. It is now electronic because it's so pervasive in all our lives. It's kind of interesting to see how in the year maybe 2020s and the next decade, what's the new cause or underlying fear that people have that's going to cause apocalypse, that's going to cause a dystopian change? Is it going to be a combination of everything, some kind of new thing that pervades the entire society that people are like, maybe we have to be careful about this. It'll be interesting to see, but I think that's what causes certain movies that we look at, and that the root when we look at that root cause, and how it's in our own lives, and when we interject ourselves into it, people love, these dystopian films. What if I was in there? And I say, well, I don't have to worry about that because I don't have a ton of cell phones. So anyone who's a Luddite is not going to care anything about these apocalyptic movies. They're like, oh, electronics, I don't have to worry about that. Yeah,
That's a very
nuclear,
interesting point.
maybe
Yeah,
that's
I
something to do
think
with it,
you're
because that's
putting it
happening.
in the historical context that basically each generation is going to have its own version of the crazes or something, that because those paranoias do change over time, which is kind of what we were alluding to earlier on. Incidentally, I meant to say, and thank you for reminding me, Guy Pearson, who I quoted earlier on, was also working on Rats. In fact, he's going to be editing and color grading and doing some of the VFX on that. Basically, he's working on post. It's all down to Guy now. We've done our bit. I can walk away from Rats. Guy is going to be living this now for the next few weeks. Thank you very much indeed, Guy. It was great to work with you as well. The other point I did want to make actually, whilst I think about it, and say that I really, 3 hours sleep this afternoon, and really didn't sleep in the hotel yesterday. I'm fairly exhausted. What I did like, it was the opening of the original George Romero, The Crazies, the children. But the children's point of view as to what watching the parents killing them and so on, and that whole child reaction I thought was very interesting, and which is also alluded to in the second one. And so Kelly Rawn has just put in a couple of comments as well. Pontypool was an incredible movie, which I've heard a lot about just recently, and I really want to go and see it. Oh, and incidentally, Mark Logan, the director of Rats, has just said, "Are you still up, Nick?" Yes, Mark, I am, oddly enough, and talking vaguely intelligently as well. And Kelly Rawn was suggesting another movie was The Signal, Paul, that you might have been referring to, the one where an electronic sound caused people to behave. Kelly Rawn is suggesting The Signal, maybe the movie that you're talking about. Cool. Not sure. Right. Mark Logan, Team Rats destroyed Nick's voice. Sorry. Yes, Mark Logan destroyed my voice by putting me in a dungeon in a very dark place and making me scream at the top of my lungs. And then he wanted me to do it again as well, and he made me do it very late at night as well. So if that's why my voice is a little bit ropey, it's all Mark Logan's fault, basically. Cool. All right. I think, unless I've got some, Paul, thank you so much for making the effort to come and join us. Any other final thoughts? So here's the classic question that I'd like to ask on these occasions. Which do we prefer? Do we prefer the original, or do we prefer the remake? And I'm going to start with Philip. Original or remake?
You said that there are problems with the original, Nick. I mean, it's in terms of how it's made and all that, and the remake is technically it's better made, definitely, and but I don't know, I feel like the original just is a more interesting film for me, and the remake is certainly, I mean, if you want to watch a top-notch action-packed horror film with some creepiness to it, there's the remake. But I don't know. It's frustrating. I think I like the original better, probably. Yeah.
So this is an original for you.
Yeah.
Okay. Cool. Jonathan, original or remake?
As great as good as the original was, and it is a George Romero movie, who is also an acclaimed horror filmmaker. I've got to go with the remake just for the action, just for the action, really. I love my action horror movies. I like the way it's promoted, and it was a really fucked up film. The violence was pretty decent in it too, so I have to go with the remake myself.
The remake. Okay. Paul, original or remake?
Oh, this is a tough one. Unfortunately, I could not view the entire original fully, so I feel like I would be giving a very unfair and biased viewpoint on this one. I would have to, at this current time, with the caveat that if I hopefully get the chance to watch the original without technical issues and problems.
Sorry, we're losing you.
I
We're
will
losing you, Paul.
gladly reconsider my vote. I would have to go with the remake or one. The remake. It's going to be different reasons. I think it's
Okay,
just,
Paul.
that's cute.
You were talking about the technical issues. Sorry, we're losing you, and it's difficult. But I think we've got the message that it was definitely the remake for you.
Electronics.
Yeah. Okay. For me, the other interesting thing, the other moment I like in the remake as well is the deputy. The way the deputy sacrifices himself at the very end, and because he is convinced that he has got the disease, that he's going crazy, that he's not right. And yet, despite that, he takes the bullets out of the gun before he walks and does death by cop, effectively, suicide by cop. Which makes me wonder, well, if he's sane enough to do that, was he really, or was he just coming back to what Filip was, that very good point that Filip was making earlier on in the day, was that, are they crazy? Are they just people in a really, really stressful situation? Sorry, I'm now getting some little comments in. Kim Lehman and Kelly Rawn prefer the original. And Mark Logan seems to be inferring you're on a par with Jamie Lee Curtis for being a horror screamer. That's very nice of you, Mark. Thank you very much indeed. And Jonathan's just dropping his head in horror at the thought of my actually being on a par with Jamie Lee Curtis. Yes, no, I
well, then you could join a television show, a Scream Queen.
Yes, Scream Queens. We're not getting it over here. It'd be interesting. Absolutely.
We need to get help over here. That's the show we need to get.
Which show, Jonathan?
Elevator.
Elevator, yes, the Soska sisters. Yeah, if you're in America
You can play Emma Roberts' father.
Sorry, Paul, we're
you.
not getting what it is you're saying. Sorry, mate, we're missing a lot of what it is you're actually saying. Gentlemen, Filip, Jonathan, Paul in particular, thank you very much indeed for joining me, and as you know, overcoming various technical issues, and for those of you who weren't able to, thank you to everybody who's commented, to Guy Pearson, to Mark Logan, to Kelly, and to Kim, and to everybody else, and Charles particularly, sorry we weren't able, and your mate who actually worked on the remake. Thank you very much indeed for joining us. It's been a really good chat, guys. I enjoyed that. Please join me next week, where I think we're going to be having a really good fun with Jill, and who make Call Girl with Lawrence Harvey, etc. To be honest, now I'm probably just going to do a little bit of eating, sit down and go to sleep, and really try not to hear Mark Logan's voice in my head. Every time I close my eyes, I've been listening to Mark Logan's voice in my head, or Katie Bonham telling me that we need to get on. Katie was our first AD, brilliant first AD. So, again, great talking to you. Thank you very much indeed. Gentlemen, if you'd just like to say goodbye, wave goodbye and say goodbye to everyone.
Yeah, goodbye to everyone.
Goodbye, thank you for having me.
Thank you very much indeed. Hopefully speak to you soon. This has been Chattering with Nicholas Vince, and I've been chattering about The Crazies, original versus remake. We seem to be kind of split between original and the remake as to which is our favourite. Both are very good films worth watching. Until next week, take care. Bye.